The South Terminal Redevelopment Program is one of the most fantastic projects going on in Colorado right now. The project consists of, first and foremost, the Public Transit Center, which is the terminus of the East Corridor line from Union Station out to DIA. It's a commuter rail facility that RTD is building. Our part of that is to basically build the train station at DIA. The train station and a light rail line out to DIA was always envisioned even in the original construction. So it's taken us about 17, 18 years to get here. So that's huge, not only for DIA connecting downtown, but also for the region. The other really exciting part of the program is a over 500 room Westin hotel. And the project obviously sits right on the south side of the existing Jefferson. Having the hotel and the associated conference center is just key because it does a lot of things. DIA is uniquely situated in the country. We're in the middle of the United States and in the middle of the continent. You can basically fly from anywhere on the continent to DIA in about 3 hours or less. So the hotel basically makes DIA a new business center for corporations and groups that want to just come in for a day or two meeting, utilizing both the hotel and the conference center. The other really interesting and pretty much unique feature of the program is the plaza. The plaza is on the 5th level. It's an open air plaza. It's huge. It's about the size of a football field and a couple basketball courts with a little room left over. The idea is to activate DIA for the non-traveling public as well as the traveling public. The idea on the plaza is to have concerts, speakers, art shows, car shows, lots of different things that'll draw people from downtown and the area out to DIA. And last but not least is we're doing some significant improvements to the existing airport infrastructure to facilitate the growth and ultimate expansion of DIA. We're extending the elevated roadways off the south end of the terminal. We're extending the train system that goes between the terminal and the concourses out into the South Terminal. By extending the AGTS, or the train that runs between the terminals and the concourses, into the South Terminal, it basically allows for additional capacity for that train system. We'll be able to add another train and increase capacity about 30%. You won't be able to get on the train in the South Terminal, but that extension increases the capacity. So there's a lot of really exciting things happening out here. We are all incredibly fortunate to be involved in a project like this. And it takes a huge team to basically pull this off. We have well over 100 firms working on the program right now, and that'll likely get closer to well over 200 when we're done. So I don't know, some of the more interesting things I think is just what we have to do. And George, from your point of view, being with Parsons, what is, how do we work this all together?
Stu, one of the elements that from a Parsons perspective is integral to the program is bringing everybody to work in the same direction. As you stated before, there are a lot of firms working on this project, and as a program, we wanted to ensure that everybody was headed in the right direction and in the best interest of the program and DIA.
Steve, you're part of the building group, which we have got an exceptional team of builders out here. We've got Kiewit doing the enabling work, the excavation, the bridges, the utilities, and then we have MHS, which is a really unique situation where we have 3 major companies, Mortensen, Hunt, and Saunders, 2 national companies and 1 strong local company, as well as all their subs that have come together, formed a group to build this, and you've been key in that. So you might talk a little bit about how that is.
Well, it's been an interesting development with the or actually the 3 contractors coming together. It's not something that we normally do in our business, but it's actually a good mix because we all get locked into our own way of doing things, and in this environment we get different ideas from different contractors, different companies, different people to help bring this project together. With the tight schedule that this project has, having those different ideas, those different concepts will help us bring this thing to a happy ending.
Well, and I think from both of your perspective and Vlad's as well, we're all housed together. I mean, the management team, representatives of the design team, all the builders, all the administration is housed together. that's pretty unique as well, I think.
Yes, it is, and it really helps a lot. I know that when the construction manager from Parsons comes down to look for me, I'm right there. He doesn't have to get in his car and go find us. We can answer questions quickly. We can get problems and things brought up quickly and get solutions quickly because everybody's right there together. Everybody's in the same room essentially.
What do you think, George?
Yeah, I think we're fortunate to have everybody have bought into the process, and just the co-location of all the different entities is a positive on the overall program.
Hey Vlad, you're on the more technical side of this. How does that co-location, how does that work for you?
Well, I was over the last year, I was more concentrated on the steel towers, so I would probably talk more about the structure itself. So basically the idea was such that we had to build such structure that would allow to lower the ground, the whole site 30 foot down. And basically we had a different options on that. We've considered 3-tower scheme, 4-tower scheme. So I came up with this idea of having just 2 individual independent towers working as individual elements. It was interesting, and it is interesting and challenging project. So basically, we worked together with collaboratively with the different groups, different companies to come up with this idea, and that's basically what happened.
Vlad, do you think it was a benefit to your process to have the contractor right next door in a different room?
Well, it is hard to say about it. The construction portion of the towers. From the design perspective, I can say that this tower is basically one of the most complicated things that I've personally, ever was involved in.
Besides the fact that obviously it's a really complicated structure and we needed to be able to erect this structure to facilitate it, but the tents of DIA is the most iconic feature of the whole facility. So as we're needing to erect these towers in order to further the program, so both Steve and Vlad, it must be a little nerve-wracking a little bit working on something that the impacts are so dramatic.
It's actually quite interesting because it's something that nobody's done before, and to be a part of that, and to actually think that you're going to help put something together that's not normal, routine, run-of-the-mill work makes it a little more interesting, makes it a lot more fun. And being a part of the design phase, we could give our input on how the constructability issues and how we should do that. It really was an interesting project. It's one of the most fun things I've done in the 30 years I've been doing this.
What's interesting, I was a young architect out of school when the design for this terminal actually came out on ENR. And I remember back then wishing that I had been on a project like this, and to get the opportunity to actually work on it is actually incredible. The one facet of the towers that I found very satisfying was actually getting the original design team involved with the current design team and the contractors to come up with the towers and actually create them.
I know when I came to the program in the fall of 2011, you were looking at 4 or 5 different ways of doing it, and then we're able to hone in on this because it was both the most cost-effective and the most buildable, correct?
Correct, yeah. We went through multiple iterations. I believe the first one was a 3-tower option with a truss, and then it went to a 4-tower option with a truss. And as the PTC and the terminal interface began to take shape, it became evident that the 3 and the 4-tower options were going to be complicated to build and still not resolve the intent of getting the cables out of the way completely. So you'd still have some interference. And then the 2-tower solution came up as an original idea of Severud, who was the original structural designer for the terminal. And it grabbed hold, and here we are. That two
The
tower solution
the biggest
is
advantage
great.
of the two tower is it has the least impact to the building, the new building that has to be built around it.
Right.
So that we're not having to leave out a portion of the building until such time as we can re-anchor the roof. With these two towers, we essentially can build the entire building and then come back and pull them down through some light wells after the roof has been reattached to the new building. With a 3 or 4 tower configuration, we would have had to actually leave out portions of the building until the towers were done, then come back and fill those in. And that's an added expense and added schedule issue to the project. So this one was really the most efficient way to get that done.
So within the whole construction process, Steve, when will the towers come down?
As soon as we get the hotel up to level 5, which is essentially midsummer next year, and get the level 5 plaza built, we'll be able to re-anchor this roof to the new anchors that'll be on level 5, and then the towers can come down. So about a year from now, less than a year from now, September, October next year, we'll start pulling these down.
So that'll be, these towers are so cool, and what they've been able to accomplish is amazing. And the whole construction to build it, it's kind of sad that we're going to end up having to take them down.
Right. Well, I suggested to the architect several times that we just leave them in there as a feature, but I haven't gotten my way yet.
Well, our architects are led by Gensler and Anderson Mason Dale. I'm sure that they took that suggestion to heart and then summarily dismissed it, I would imagine.
We can paint them and make them look real nice.
Yeah, I think they're fantastic, and they're really, when you're inside the terminal and look out, it's really amazing because of the size of them and the breadth of them.
Right. It was an interesting project from the standpoint that we actually started building these towers 30 feet above where they were ultimately going to end up, because the existing grade height was 30 feet higher than we are right now. So as we excavated down, these towers just seemed to get bigger and bigger. When it was all done, it looks like a pretty impressive project.
It is.
I really do hate to see it go away.
Well, I think in order just to go through the structural intricacies of the tower, I think Vlad can explain it a little bit better than I can.
So basically the towers itself are the three-dimensional trusses, and all the members that the truss consists of is purely tension compression members. So that's the beauty of it. So the bending component was involved only when we were considering cruciforms, as you know, in time when sequential excavation was proposed. The basic idea is to support tensile fabric roof in 2 key points, which are the welding points, and the third vertical component is the mast itself. So the weight of the mast and the tensile forces from the fabric are resolved through the outrigger arms and as I said before, tension compression members to the ground through the cruciforms, which are approximately 40 foot down right now. So rock socket itself, the longest one is a 40 foot. So that's the basic concept of it.
I think one of the major elements that you see on the towers, they look so simple in theory. And then as you dig deeper into the actual design constraints and the criteria, it becomes so complicated that it's just unfathomable.
Well, these towers are essentially holding these roofs in all directions. They're keeping the tent stretched out so it doesn't fold up. They're keeping it poked up in the air, and they're also holding it down, especially in wind events. So these towers are moving in all directions all days.
Well, my aha moment came when actually a few weeks ago when the tension was relieved. Obviously, it totally would have ruined my day if it hadn't worked. I had my standing joke that I'd be moving to Mexico, and luckily I'm still here. These guys did an awesome job, but there's always that time when a lot of the work that we do as engineers and architects is not always, you don't really see the ultimate testing of it. In this particular case, when the cables were basically relieved of tension, it was either going to work or it wasn't. So at that very moment, you knew that it was going to work. Of course, we had great faith in our designers and our builders that it was going to work.
And there were some, I wouldn't really call them aha moments, but we had a lot of moments when we thought we had to second guess how we were actually going to construct this. As we started adding up the tolerances of the caissons versus the steel and where the tower had to sit to hold the roof, we realized that the tolerance for the caisson holes was such that if we were to be at the top end of that tolerances, our cruciforms would not be straight, which created a problem when they set the tower on top of them. So we oversized the holes in order to get rid of some of that tolerance issue. We made doggone sure when we were drilling that they went as straight as possible. We did all this in our pre-planning, so when we got out here, it actually worked. The engineer, when it came time to do the detensioning, they had looked at this very closely. They knew exactly how many pounds to expect. And when the cables actually slackened a little bit less than where they were expecting it, that's when we started applauding, because we knew then that everything had worked right and that the tower was going to stand. So we could all go home and sleep at night now.
Well, and even when, as we stated earlier, originally when this grade that we're sitting on now is about 30 feet up, it seems relatively simple to take all the dirt out from around it, but that actually turned out to be
It turned out to be a lot more difficult to get the dirt out from inside the tower, because not only did we have the dirt in there, we also had the caisson that was holding the original mast that was holding the tent up. So that became a little bit more difficult. One of the other contractors out here, Kiewit, was able to come in with some of their bigger equipment and help us out, get that dirt out of there. So we didn't impact schedule, and we didn't end up doing any damage to the tower. So it turned out to be trickier to get that dirt out. We thought we could just reach in there and pull it out of there, but it didn't come out that easy.
And then you could only take it down so far, and then you had to continue to build the structure as you went down.
As we excavated down that 30 feet, we had to continually put in cross bracing so that we didn't overload those tower foundation legs as we were going down.
It's amazing, just amazing.
The design team wouldn't allow us to excavate all the way down.
Those designers got in the way of the work.
There were some concerns there.
Yeah. And we're glad they were doing that too.
We tried real hard to let them just dig the whole thing out, but they wouldn't do it.
Within the last few weeks, we have been able to get rid of the cables, and over here we're moving out what we called the plug, which was about a couple 100,000 yards of dirt. Where that sits today is basically where the hotel will be. So we got to get that out of the way, and the goal is to have that out in the next 2 or 3 weeks, so the actual foundation work for the hotel or for the public transit center and the platform can begin. So really, as Steve said earlier, the schedule that we are trying to achieve is by far one of our most challenging aspects. Even though DIA is huge, it's the second biggest airport in the world in land area, the biggest in the United States. We're doing a lot of this work in a relatively confined space, complicated by the fact that we're not only building a structure, we're also building the roads and the system for the commercial rail to come in. It's a very congested site, and the whole intricacies of what can be built and when will continue to be a huge challenge throughout the project.
And the next step for us is, as soon as the dirt's moved to the end of November, we start drilling foundations. Our first milestone is to have the train station and the train platform ready for RTD by the 1st of January of 2014. That's going to be a tough milestone. It's a tight milestone. It's doable, but that's our next focus. And at the same time, of course, we got to continue to bring the building up so that the hotel can open in the middle of 2015. So we got an ambitious schedule, but we've got a good crew. We got a good team. I think everybody's got the right goal in mind to get this thing done, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be one of those projects that you like to brag about to your grandkids a few years from now.
And I think, George, part of the issue too is the actual design of the whole complex is really just past 60%, even though we've already started the work and the foundations will begin in the next month or so. So the design team is still building designing the rest of the facility.
Absolutely. Some portions of the design have been accelerated to allow construction to start earlier than others, but the design will be done within the next few months, but it's still experiencing some changes. And Steve, to your point before, one of the satisfying moments that we have in this profession is actually seeing something that's designed come to life and being part of the construction. That's very satisfying. But one of the more gratifying elements of this program is seeing all the different individuals different design firms, different construction firms, all the workers, everybody's striving, and you can see the focus and the effort coming to realization out here.